I hear the door open before I reach for my keys. That half-second of confusion is the clearest I can describe it. My hands are full, grocery bag on one arm, purse on the other, and the door swings inward, and I think, briefly and absurdly, that it is some act of consideration. That my husband heard me pull in and came to help. Then I see her. She is barefoot on my floor. The hardwood I spent 4 months choosing, researching, and finally having installed by a contractor I vetted through 3 different referrals because I wanted it done right. She is standing on it as though she has been standing on it for a while and has developed no particular opinion about it, which is to say she is treating it like her floor. She is young. She looks like someone in the specific middle of a life that hasn't complicated itself yet. She looks up at me. She does not move, does not say sorry, does not step aside. She holds her position in the doorway of my home with the easy confidence of someone who was told, before tonight, that this was going to be fine. The cold from the grocery bag seeps through to my palm. She still doesn't move. It takes me a few seconds to recognize the shirt. Not because it is unusual. Because the mind does strange things when protecting you, slows the intake down, processes one detail at a time, keeps you from being destroyed all at once. The shirt is gray, soft. I have owned it for 6 years. It is what I reach for on the nights I want something that feels like nothing, the nights when being comfortable is the whole point. I washed it on Sunday, folded it Monday morning and put it in the 3rd drawer of the dresser. I know this because I am the person in this house who puts things where they go. She is wearing it. It hangs on her the way it hangs on me, loose, low at the collar, casual in the way of something never meant to be seen. I think about my bedroom. I think about my dresser, my 3rd drawer, my folded shirt. I think about what it means that she opened that drawer and wore it into the living room. Some betrayals arrive large and fast. This one kept arriving in small pieces, each worse than the last, and I was still receiving them. I moved my gaze past her. My husband was standing just behind. He was holding a glass of wine, his own. They were both drinking. The evening had been going on for some time. Not a panicked situation he was managing. A relaxed one. I was the interruption. I was the unexpected variable in what was otherwise an ordinary Tuesday night, and I could see from the way he held his glass, the ease in his shoulders, the particular stillness in his face, that he had prepared for this moment. That he had rehearsed something. That whatever he was about to say had been thought about in advance. He looked at me the way you look at a problem you have already decided to solve. "We need to stop pretending this marriage is working," he said. Clean, clear, pre-planned. I have thought about those 10 words many times. About the specific cruelty of delivering a conclusion to someone who didn't know you'd been building to it. About what it says about a person that they invite another woman into a home they share with their wife and then use the wife's presence as the occasion to deliver a verdict they wrote without her. The grocery bag was heavy. The milk carton was cold against my wrist. I didn't say anything. What I noticed, in the strange slow motion of that moment, was the couch. She had been sitting on it. I could tell from the cushions, shifted from where I keep them. A blanket was half pulled from the basket in the corner. A second wineglass was on the coffee table. An opened bottle of wine was on the side table next to the lamp I bought on a trip we took in year 4. She had been sitting in my living room, using my blanket, drinking from my wineglasses. I had gone to the grocery store. I had bought milk and bread and a rotisserie chicken and the good pasta because I was going to make something real for dinner. I had been thinking, in the car on the way home, about whether I wanted to try to have a real conversation tonight. Whether I wanted to try again. I had been deciding, in the parking lot, to try. He had spent the same time I was trying to think through how to fix something, deciding how to end it. He had made his decision and invited evidence of it into our home. I set the grocery bag on the porch. I turned around. I left. Before I tell you what the next 48 hours looked like, let me tell you who I am. My name is Elise Morgan. I am 42 years old. I was married to Darian Cross for 11 years. I am a property manager and contract consultant with 17 years of professional experience. I read documents for a living. I find the language other people skip. I organize records the way some people organize photographs, because the things you document are the things you can prove. My husband brought his affair partner into our home while I was still married to him. 48 hours later, I signed the papers that changed everything. The house was on a quiet street. 3 bedrooms, original hardwood floors I had refinished, a garden I put in over 2 springs, and a mortgage I had refinanced 4 years ago. I handled the paperwork on the purchase, both refinancings, the insurance, and every major maintenance contract we had ever signed. Darian did not handle paperwork. He was good at the larger picture, the deal, the relationship, the room. He was not interested in the document after the handshake. He had always left that to me. He left more than he realized. He signed more than he knew. And I kept every single copy. The marriage did not break on a single night. I want to say that clearly because the true version of this story requires it. Not for sympathy, but because the honest account matters. What happened with Darian was a slow and almost imperceptible shift that started somewhere around year 7 and accelerated in years 9 through 11. Not one betrayal but many small exits, from the conversation, from the shared life, from any pretense that what we were doing together was actually together. I noticed the changes. I am someone who notices things. What I did with what I noticed is the harder part to explain. I adjusted, worked around, told myself the coldness was stress and the distance was work pressure. I told myself these things not because I believed them entirely but because I had built something here and I was not ready to stop believing it could survive. I kept trying. I kept showing up. And slowly, without my full awareness, the showing up became the only thing holding it together. He had stopped holding up his side years before he told me. The night with the doorway and the woman and the pre-planned sentence was simply the first time he stopped pretending he hadn't. The late nights started in year 8. He had always worked hard. I respected that and factored it into my own choices. When he needed to travel or attend dinners I wasn't included in, I didn't push. I understood ambition. I had my own. But there is a difference between a person working late and a person who has found a reason to be elsewhere. The difference is in the texture of the explanation. Early explanations were specific. A client, a project deadline, a dinner he needed to attend. Later explanations flattened out, got thin, lost the specifics. A work thing, instead of the quarterly with the Harmon account. Out with people, instead of dinner with the team. I noticed this. I notice everything. I didn't say anything for a long time because I had learned, in a marriage that had become increasingly fragile, that noticing things out loud was interpreted as accusation. I had watched enough conversations turn into arguments about whether my concern was reasonable to know that raising a concern required evidence, not instinct. I kept my instincts private. I started writing things down. Dates, times, small inconsistencies that individually meant nothing and collectively meant something I did not yet want to name. I kept the journal in my office drawer. I did not know then how much it would matter. His phone went face down sometime in year 9. I remember the first time I noticed. We were eating dinner, a dinner I had made, a real one, the kind where I had thought about what he liked and planned accordingly, and his phone buzzed on the table and he picked it up and his body shifted. Slightly, just a few degrees, away from me. He put it face down and went back to eating. I said nothing. I ate, cleared the table, did the dishes, but that small angle, that deliberate placement of the screen face down, I catalogued it. It happened again the next week. Then regularly, then constantly. Every surface he set his phone on, he placed it face down. Every time it buzzed when I was near, his body made that same small turn. I am professionally trained to read patterns. A single anomaly is noise. A repeated anomaly is data. This was data. I did not act on it immediately. I am someone who understands the cost of moving before you have complete information. Moving too soon, before the picture is fully documented, gives the other party time to rearrange. I have watched this happen in professional disputes. I know what it costs. So I watched. I noted. I waited. The picture kept becoming more complete. Somewhere in year 10, the conversations between us changed shape. Not dramatically. More the way a room slowly empties. You don't notice each piece leaving but look up one day to find yourself in something almost bare. We used to talk. Real conversations. The kind that go somewhere unexpected, that produce something neither person had when they started. He used to ask about my work, the cases I was dealing with, the contracts I was reviewing, the specific problems I was paid to solve. He stopped asking. He stopped being interested in anything I brought to the conversation. What replaced it was logistics. Schedules. Practical updates delivered in the tone of people who are coordinating rather than connecting. What time are you home? Did you call the plumber? The car needs an oil change. I kept trying to steer us towards something real. He kept redirecting toward the surface. And gradually I stopped trying as hard, not out of giving up, but the exhaustion of reaching across a widening gap long enough to feel it in your body. I told myself this was a phase. I told myself most marriages went through this. I told myself a lot of things I had started to believe less and less. I did not stop trying. I just started taking notes. Then the blame started, not anger, not confrontation, something quieter and more precise, the kind of blame that arrives dressed as observation, as concern, as the sad inevitable conclusion of someone who has been paying attention. You seem like you're somewhere else lately. I was home, present. I had cooked dinner, managed the house, and handled 4 client calls. But I was somewhere else. You never want to connect anymore. I had suggested a walk 3 days before. He had been tired. I feel like we're just coexisting. This one landed because there was truth in it. We were coexisting, but the reason was not that I had stopped trying. The reason was that trying to connect with someone who had mentally left years before gets exhausting in ways that eventually look like distance if you are the one observing from the outside. He was rewriting what was happening. Not consciously, maybe. What I know is that the narrative he was building, one where the marriage had failed because I had failed in it, was being constructed carefully and delivered in small, regular doses. And I, in the way of someone who has spent years wanting the marriage to work, kept trying to prove him wrong by trying harder. It did not work. It never does. The house was mine in ways he had never paid attention to. I say this not as metaphor but as fact. Legally, structurally, in the specific language of property documents and title arrangements. When we bought it 11 years ago, I reviewed every document before we signed. I read the full purchase agreement, the title documents, and the ownership structure options. I selected the arrangement that made the most sense to me. He signed where I pointed. He trusted me to have understood it. He was right to. I had understood every word. When we refinanced 4 years into ownership, and again 4 years after that, I reviewed those documents too. At the second refinancing, I made a specific request regarding the title structure. The bank attorney confirmed it in writing. Darian signed. He did not read the document. He never asked what the structure meant. He signed because I told him where to sign and because he believed the management of the paperwork was below his attention. Below his attention was exactly where I needed it. I also maintained the property insurance, the maintenance contracts, the improvement receipts, 11 years of records in a filing cabinet in the home office, organized by year and category, backed up to a cloud account in my name. Everything was in order. It always was. There were financial accounts he did not think about. Darian was the higher earner, and he carried that fact as though it explained everything else. His income, his business, his name on the agreements that mattered. He organized our financial life to reflect his prominence in it. The joint account was managed on his terms. The investments were directed by his decisions. What he never tracked was what I was doing in the margin. 7 years before the doorway night, I opened a personal account. I told him in passing. He nodded and moved on, which was exactly the reception I expected. I put money in it every month. Small amounts, not because I was hiding anything, but because I was working within a household budget I managed carefully, and I had learned, over years of financial coordination, that consistent small deposits become significant balances. I also kept detailed records of every financial contribution I had made to the household that wasn't reflected in Darian's version of our finances. Home improvements I had paid for. Insurance premiums. Maintenance costs. The down payment supplement I had contributed from my own savings at the original purchase, before the joint account was established. Everything was documented. Everything was dated. Everything was in the filing cabinet. I drove 2 blocks from the house and parked. I did not drive to a friend's house. I did not call anyone yet. I sat in the car on a residential street 2 blocks from the home I had built, and I gave myself time to feel what I was feeling, because I have learned the hard way that refusing to feel something does not make it smaller. It just makes it arrive later, larger, in a worse moment. So I sat there and I felt it. The specific grief of realizing the marriage you tried to hold together had already, for a long time, been held only by you. The humiliation of a woman in your shirt on your couch. The ache of understanding that while you were deciding to try again, he had already stopped. I let it be real. I cried a little. Not for long. Not with the helpless quality of someone who doesn't know what to do next, but with the specific and temporary quality of someone releasing pressure before refocusing. Then I opened my phone. Not to call someone to cry to. To look at 3 contacts I had stored and barely used. Dorothea Reeves, attorney. Simone Farr, property law specialist. And Ren, who was my oldest friend and who I knew would answer. I called Ren first. Ren answered before the second ring finished. She is that kind of friend. The kind built for the call you make when something has broken beyond the point of pretending it hasn't. I have known her since before Darian. She watched the marriage from the outside with the quiet attention of someone who sees clearly and waits until a friend is ready. I told her what had happened. Not the emotional version. She would get that eventually, in a living room, with wine, in the weeks to come. I gave her the facts. The door opening, the woman, the shirt, the pre-planned sentence delivered with that particular calm. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Where are you right now?" I told her. "Come here," she said. "Bring your documents." I told her I had them in the car. She said, "Good. How long do you need before you can drive?" 10 minutes, I said. She said she would have tea ready. She did not say I told you so. She simply made space for what was happening and told me to come. I drove to her apartment across the city and she had tea on the table and sat across from me and let me be in the wreckage without rushing me out of it. I called Dorothea Reeves at 10:45 that night. I had retained her 3 months earlier. Not in a dramatic moment of decision, in a quiet Tuesday afternoon when I acknowledged to myself that the marriage was ending and I needed to understand my position before the ending happened. She had reviewed the basics then and told me to call when I was ready to move. I told her what had occurred. She listened the way attorneys listen, for facts, for legal implications, for what is useful. When I finished she said, "Are you in the house?" I said no. "Do you have your documents?" I said yes. "Come in at 9 tomorrow morning. Bring everything." I asked her what she thought about the timing. She said, "Filing first is always better than filing second. If what you've described happened in the house tonight, we have grounds to move quickly. I want to file before he has a chance to consult anyone." "What time tomorrow?" I asked. 9, she said. "Don't be late." I told her I was never late. She said, "I know. I've worked with you before." She knew what I meant when I said I had my documents. I heard something close to professional anticipation in her voice. "I'll see you at 9, she said. I slept on Ren's couch. Not well, but some. At 5:45 in the morning I was awake and the thinking had already started, that low-level productive hum that happens when a brain has finished grieving its first wave and moved into the planning register. I lay there for a while and I ran through what I had, the house ownership structure and what it actually said. The refinancing confirmation letter, the written confirmation from the bank attorney, dated 4 years ago, specifying the exact title arrangement I had requested. The personal account and what was in it. The 11 years of household financial records. The journal with its entries. The maintenance receipts and improvement records. Darian's assumption was that the marriage ending would be the beginning of a negotiation between 2 parties with roughly equivalent information. He would have access to the joint account records. He knew the general shape of our finances. He understood, in the broad strokes way he understood everything he hadn't personally managed, that the house was an asset. What he did not know was the specific shape of that asset. He did not know what the title arrangement said. He did not know the refinancing confirmation existed. He did not know what was in my filing cabinet. He had trusted me with all of it. That was his decision. I had simply been careful with it. I was at the house by 7 in the morning. I knew Darian's schedule. 11 years is a long time to know a person's habits. He would not be awake before 8:30 on a Thursday. I had 90 minutes. I let myself in. The living room was as I expected, the cushions still shifted, the blanket not properly returned, the wine bottles on the table. I did not stop to look at it for more than a moment. I had not come to feel the humiliation again. I had come for the filing cabinet. The home office is off the hallway. 4-drawer cabinet, combination lock. The combination is the date of my first professional certification, a fact about me, not Darian, which is why he never knew it. I opened it. I took out every folder I needed. The purchase agreement, both refinancing files, the written confirmation from the bank attorney, the insurance records, the maintenance and improvement receipts organized by year, the property tax documentation. I also went upstairs and took 2 suitcases of clothing, the photograph of my mother, and the full set of wineglasses, 8, hand-blown, from the cabinet above the sink. I was gone by 7:41. The filing cabinet was lighter. My car was full. I drove to Rennes. The 9 o'clock meeting with Dorothea was the clearest 45 minutes I had spent in years. She reviewed the documents the way I do, quickly but completely, with attention on the specific words. When she reached the refinancing confirmation letter, she stopped. Read it again. Made a longer note. He's going to be surprised by this, she said. I know, I said. Did he understand what he was signing? He trusted me to understand it, I said. I did. She looked at me for a moment. You have the journal? I handed her a copy I had printed at Rennes the night before. I had organized everything into a clean packet. She reviewed the journal summary page, a 1-page overview I had prepared, chronological, dated, with the relevant entries flagged. She put her pen down. I want to file this afternoon, she said. Not tomorrow. Today. What do I need to do? I asked. She told me. I had a 2 o'clock with Simone Farr. I had the rest of the morning to prepare. I spent it at a coffee shop with good light, reviewing my own documents, making sure every page was where it needed to be. I found one thing I wanted to add to the filing. I flagged it for Dorothea. Simone Farr called back within 20 minutes of my message. I had left it at 10:50 and expected to wait until morning. She called at 11:12, which told me the message had been specific enough to communicate urgency without overstating it. We talked for 30 minutes. I walked her through the ownership structure, the title arrangement, the refinancing confirmation. She asked 4 precise questions. When I had answered the last, she said, "Can you be at my office at 2?" "Yes," I said. "Bring the refinancing confirmation, the original and a copy." "I have both," I said. She paused. "The original?" she said. "I keep originals," I said. At the 2 o'clock she had already prepared, researched case precedents, pulled property records, had the ownership structure on screen. She walked me through the title arrangement with the efficiency of someone who has spent years in exactly this kind of document. "This is significantly stronger than standard marital property," she said. "Given the refinancing structure and the confirmation letter." "I know," I said. "He doesn't know." "No," I said. "He doesn't." She made a note. Then she looked at me with the expression of an attorney who is about to say something direct. "You're very prepared for someone who says they weren't planning this." "I'm always this prepared," I said. "For everything." Dorothea filed at 4:17 in the afternoon. She sent me a confirmation message at 4:22. I was in the coffee shop 2 blocks from her office, the one with the good light in the afternoon and a corner table I had claimed for the second time that day. I read the confirmation. I sat with it for a moment. Not celebrating, not winning, closer to the feeling when a structure you built is finally tested and holds, a quiet confirmation that the care was not wasted. That the years of organization and attention and precise record keeping were not just personality traits. They were the thing that made this possible. Darian called at 4:48. I let it ring. He called again at 5:03. I let it ring. At 5:22 he texted. The message said, essentially, that last night hadn't gone the way he intended, that he was open to talking, and that attorneys would only make things adversarial. He used the word reasonably. I know that word. I know what it means in the context of a person who has just realized that a situation is not what they assumed. It means, I have just discovered I am not as in control as I thought I was. Please negotiate against yourself. I forwarded the message to Dorothea. She replied, "Good. We expected this." Darian contacted Dorothea's office the following morning. He had retained an attorney, someone competent, from a firm I recognized. That meant he had made calls that same evening and understood, by then, that this required professional help. His attorney's first inquiry was about the property. Of course it was. He had looked at the house the way he always looked at the things in our life, as something that existed in his name and by his authority and which would naturally remain in his domain if the marriage ended. He had not thought carefully about the details because he had delegated them and not tracked them since. Dorothea told me about the inquiry. He thought it was standard joint marital property, she said. He didn't read the documents, I said. He's going to say you misled him. He can say that, I said. I have the closing documents, the title correspondence, the explanation page the attorney provided, and notes I took at the closing meeting. There was a pause. You took notes at the closing meeting, she said. I take notes at every meeting, I said. It's a professional habit. She was quiet for a moment. His attorney is going to have a difficult conversation with him, she said. That's not my concern, I said. No, she agreed. It isn't. Ren came over the night after the filing. I had found a short-term rental, a furnished apartment in a neighborhood I had always liked but never lived in. Small, clean, quiet. I had signed the lease that morning and arranged the space immediately and completely, the way I always do. The filing cabinet was on the floor in the corner. I had set it there when I came in. She brought dinner and we sat at the small table and ate and talked, and it was the kind of conversation that happens between two people who have known each other long enough not to need scaffolding. She asked, "How do you feel?" I thought about it, like someone who just saw the results of something they spent a long time preparing for, I said. That's not an emotion, she said. Relieved, clear, sad about something already over. Not crushed. She nodded. He really thought you'd fall apart, she said. He thought I was the emotional one, I said. He always did. He confused emotional availability with emotional fragility. They're not the same. She poured more wine. What happens next? She asked. The attorneys handle it, I said. I keep my records. I answer questions. I let the documents do what they're designed to do. And then? And then I keep going, I said. 48 hours after I stood in my doorway holding a grocery bag, I signed. Dorothea had organized the filing packet with the same precision I would have used myself, which was part of why I trusted her. Every page was in order. Every signature line was marked with a small tab. The documents were numbered and indexed. I read every page. I know most people, in the emotional upheaval of filing for divorce, do not. But I am not most people. I am someone who understands that what you sign is what governs you, and that the time to read is before and not after. I asked 2 questions she answered directly. Then I signed, not in a heightened moment. Not with music or tears or anything that might make a better scene in some other version of this story. I signed the way I sign any document of consequence. Carefully, in the correct locations, with the date written precisely, with full understanding of what each signature confirmed. My name, 11 times, in the places that mattered. When it was done, Dorothea looked up. He's going to fight the property piece, she said. He can fight it, I said. I have everything. I know you do, she said. I put my copies in my bag. I zipped it closed. I said thank you. I walked out. He sent 3 more messages over the following week. Each one was a different approach, and I recognized each approach because I have spent 17 years reading the language of people who want something and are trying different frames to get it. The first message appealed to reason. Let's be adults, not attorneys. The second appealed to history. He talked about the early years, the things we had built. He used the word as 4 times in 6 sentences. The third message was closer to pressure. His attorney would be in touch about the property. He wanted me to understand that he had rights here. He wanted me to know this was going to be complicated. I forwarded all 3 to Dorothea. She handled the third one through his attorney. The property discussion did not go the way Darian expected. This is not something I know secondhand. Dorothea told me directly. When his attorney reviewed the title documentation and the refinancing confirmation and the written correspondence from the bank attorney, he had a difficult conversation with his client. Darian had built his assumption on the casual understanding of a man who never read the document. That is a costly way to understand anything. Every document I had signed over 11 years had been read. Every single one. I live somewhere new now. Not far. 2 hours away. A city I know professionally but never lived in personally. I found the apartment the way I find everything, carefully, reviewing the lease before I signed. The filing cabinet is in the 2nd bedroom, which I am using as an office. I have not spoken to Darian since the night he told me the marriage wasn't working. That sentence, pre-planned, pre-decided, delivered with the woman in my shirt in my doorway, was the last thing he said to me directly. Everything since has passed through attorneys. I think about that night sometimes. About the ease she had in my house. About the wine glass and the cushions and the shirt I washed on Sunday. What I come back to is this. He believed that bringing her in was the move that proved he had won. That the comfort she displayed in my space was proof that the space was already his and not mine. He didn't understand what held the space together or what was in the filing cabinet or what the title arrangement said or what I had been careful about for 11 years. He saw a wife. He missed the professional. He missed the woman who reads every word. She is the one who decided what happened next. She is doing fine.